Welcome to you guys. See, already failed. Welcome you guys to another episode of Real Estate Unscripted. I am your host, Matt Hornaday, and this is my co-host and business partner, David White. And today what we want to focus on is bring you guys back to basics, right? So we've got three traits, the three top traits that if you're new into real estate, or if you've been in it for a little while, you really want to make sure that you're honing in on these three traits to really continue to level up in this business, all right? So sit back, relax, and watch the whole thing. All right, so David, let's get into it, right?
Okay.
So what we were talking about are three traits, right, that are really the foundational pieces to any real estate agent in this business.
Yeah, 100%.
And really where I want to start is we're going to start with number 3 and work our way up. So you guys are really going to want to stay till the end of this video to make sure that you guys are getting the whole thing. So number 1 on our list, well, I guess number 3 on our list, is honesty and integrity, right? And so tell me what you think that means in the real estate business.
Well, so I had an in-depth conversation last night with a buyer, a client that we're bringing on board, and just throughout our conversation, just things. And the biggest concern that I find that most buyers have are when you start introducing them to everybody in your network, right? You're introducing them to brokers, you're introducing them to insurance guys, inspectors. The first thing that I find that and being a consumer myself is what's in it for you, right? And the honesty and the integrity of I don't get kickbacks. I don't make money off of you spending your money somewhere else, right? And more than anyone else, like I don't pay attention to commissions, right? I don't know what
That's
the percentage
a serious thing now, guys.
I just don't. And I feel good not doing that, right? And because my intentions are pure. I want to help somebody find a home, right? And then also just being a realtor, we obviously are held accountable to specific particular standards, right? Kickbacks, how we share our commissions, things of that nature. So just having that mindset of navigating between the black and white of what you're supposed to do, the honesty from that, and then also the way you're communicating, right? We've come across tons of agents who are like, yeah, I have tons of offers, you need to come highest and best X, Y, and Z, right? There's kind of it's a huge gray area. There's not like a integrity police on every transaction, right? It just that's something you have to absorb internally. Are you going to be a person that has integrity and say, I don't have any offers, right? I have some verbal ones, X, Y, and Z, and I just find that part of our training program, being able to help new agents, existing agents, and successful agents navigate through those conversations based on whatever season of life they are in their particular career, and how to navigate through them. How to explain to someone you don't have a contract, right? But at the same time solicit one, or at the same time give them that. You use this terminology a lot, the fear of missing out, right? I don't have a contract, but here's what I'm going to say to make you want to submit a contract, and I think that's huge on the honesty and integrity part. Most people, would take a different route. A person with less honesty and integrity would.
And like the way that I see it as well, in addition to that, is when we think about our clients, right? Making the decisions that are the best for them, right? It's often assumed because we get paid on commission that we're just in it for the transaction, right?
Sure.
We just want a deal to close, right? And from one of the things that we've always said from day one is that it's great to have the deal close, but it's better to do what's right for that client. So there's some situations where we've been at a showing, right? And you've had multiple situations of this where you always talked about, but like, we leave the house and we're like, this isn't the right house for you.
100%.
Right?
That's a good point. Really, really good point. Wow. I mean, you're just honestly refreshing my memory. That's a really good point because that's our feedback. That's our number one feedback. So what he's referring to is once we learn our client and once we know what they're looking for, we just have this sense. We're professionals in this space. I know when I walk into a house, this client's gonna want it. I've walked in several houses and like, hey guys, we gotta go. This isn't for us, X, Y, and Z. Because I just know some part in the process, especially during the emotional milestones of the process, you're not gonna want it for X, Y, and Z. And we've gotten a lot of, a lot of positive feedback from that, where we've have buyers who are like, oh, You know, we said we want a walk-in closet. The agent completely ignored that. Said this is in your price point. It's a little bit above. You know, the closet you can do something with it. Go to IKEA and fix it up, and you know, try to kind of push the transaction. Where you know, our team, we're just more so if I have to show you 10 more houses, we're just going to show you 10 more houses because I want you to love it.
Exactly.
And we've had situations where we've closed on houses. And like for me, I carried a lot of negative energy with me when, you know, a buyer has felt after they purchased the property like, oh, I felt like I maybe have overpaid, or not even that. The prime example I'm thinking about is I really wish I got the furniture with this property, right? There was some miscommunication, and I wish I would have been able to buy all of the furniture. And that just sits with you where, you know, other people are like, hey, we just closed on, you know, just on $1 million home. Next transaction, oh, you couldn't get the furniture. Yeah. Sorry about that, but because of our, you know, integrity and our drive and our passion for making sure, you know, that we, you know, have a culture that's driven on making customers happy, really separates us apart. And then also, that's where a lot of our referrals keep coming from.
100%. And it even like, so that's one side on the buy side. Like on the sell side as well, it's also, does it make sense for you to sell this property today, right? Like we've got a client who, 2 clients, right? One who was considering selling a condo, and the best situation for her ended up being that she rents out the condo, right? Yep. She holds it, she's making a really good profit on it as a rental, and so it makes sense for her to hold that and keep it as an investment property. Another client who was looking to sell their home, right? And it ended up making more financial sense for them to hold that home and rent that out as well. And so it's what I like about it is that like, I'm always focused, or we're always focusing on what can we do that makes the most sense for whatever season of life you're in, and giving you the best financial benefit. In that particular situation, if they were like, hey, we need to get this off our books and we have to sell it, cool, we'll shift the strategy and focus on that. But if it was a situation where it's like, or you could turn this into an investment property and you can continue to make money on it, why not do that, right? It would be great, and I've said this multiple times, I would love to sell your home. That would be great. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm doing whatever is best for you and your financial future. Like I feel like that's one of the reasons why I'm here, right? Agreed. It's not just to sell your home. It's to help guide you into the best real estate transactional decision you can make.
I agree. Right? 100%.
And so that's it. That's a no-brainer to me in terms of integrity and honesty and what we need to be doing for our clients. And then number 2 on our list is going to be that entrepreneurial spirit, right? Like if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to be willing to be an entrepreneur, right? It is not, you're not on a 9-to-5. You're not working at some corporation and somebody's sending you the work and then you're just executing the work and you get a check that's coming in every single weekend, right? This is, I feel that so many people come into this business and their thought process is that this is going to be better than a 9-to-5 because I'm going to have all this flexibility and all this freedom. But they don't think about now you're an entrepreneur, right? You are running your own business and you need to now be the marketer. You need to now be the salesperson, right? You need to now be the social media expert. You need to now be the lead generator. 100%. You need to now be your ISA, your transaction coordinator. Like there's all, like when you break down all the things that a real estate agent does, it's a lot of hats, right? And when you're first getting into this business, you're carrying and wearing all of those hats if you're doing this 100% on your own. Exactly. Right? If you get into a good situation with the right team or whatever, where they start taking some of that off of you so you can focus on your one thing, that becomes very beneficial for you, right? Especially as you're growing your career. But for most agents getting into this business, I know when I came in, I wore all of those hats, right? And a lot of people end up failing in this business because they don't understand how to wear all of those hats.
Exactly. And just to speak on that just a little bit is, again, in every topic, I'm going to keep saying the same thing. We want to identify that entry-level person, the person who actually has it somewhat figured out, right? And then the professional who's like, yeah, I've been able to figure it out, but, I still need a little bit more traction in terms of, I think a lot of people have the entrepreneurial spirit. They just don't know how to implement that work ethic or what should they focus on, setting goals and things of that nature. And that's what we're going to dive deep into with our training program for every single level, what season of life or what where they're at in their professional careers or where they need to be at, right? And just kind of help tweak that because that's very important, being an entrepreneur and being able to be at a closing, take on a new buyer at the same time, close this property, go to a listing appointment, you're doing so many different, and just looking at an organization and how corporate is ran with all the different departments at any given moment in a series of 5 minutes, you're a representative of each department, right? I'm doing this, doing that, and my marketing guy is calling me saying we got to do a video shoot in 45 minutes. So you're doing everything, and how to manage that. Is it chaotic, and how to make it non-chaotic, and how to schedule it out, and have real true goals, goals and short-term goals are in line with your long-term goals.
Yeah, I think you hit a couple of my major points on the head right there. So one of the focal points to start off with is obviously setting your goals, right? Your short-term goals, your long-term goals, or your medium-term goals, and then your long-term goals, right? So have that in place, and then everything that you're doing should be in line with those goals, right? So the way that I think about it is like boom, 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 I got all of those set up. Now, let me look at my daily calendar and let me structure this so that the hours in my day are accounting and driving me back towards my goals, right? So let's say you're a new agent in this business and your focal point is you want to hit 12 transactions within the first 12 months, right? That's one transaction a month. All right, so where are your goals? What are you going to be doing? How are you attacking that, right? Okay, well, I'm planning to do that by working buyers. All right, cool. So how many phone calls are you going to be making, and what time period are you guaranteeing that you're going to be making those phone calls to make sure that you get to that goal, right? And then like, oh, well, I would love to also in year 2 or whatever expand from 12 to 24 or from 12 to 50, whatever the number is, right? You want to expand. And so what are you going to do to get there? Well, I know I can't just keep doing the same thing that I did in year 1. I'm going to need to add on something. All right, so what are you going to add on? I'm really going to target this, right? Whether it be for sell by owners, whether it be 100%. Door knocking, whether circle prospecting, whatever it is, I'm going to go and target this now. And I'm going to dedicate this amount of time to drive that business, right? And then you just continue to expand, expand, expand. But it's all about setting it out and really blueprinting it, right? And I actually have my whole calendar, right? Like it's on an Excel sheet and it breaks down like each hour what we're supposed to be doing inside that time frame so that I know, hey, this is what my day is supposed to look like. Am I executing? Am I hitting that, right? I can go through and check, yep, I did this, I did this. I took my break when I was supposed to take my break. I didn't just leave and go grab a coffee and sit around for 15 minutes when I'm really supposed to be on the phones making phone calls for the next 2 hours.
We all know how to go and create and set, and it makes us feel good. And then, we start getting that negative energy comes in when you're not executing and you're not actually implementing and you're not following through on the implementation phase. That's like 101 with everybody, with leaders, managers, etc., right? Everything that you just talked about is what we're going to go into details of, right? Because you're picking up the phone and you're calling buyers. What buyers? What buyers are you calling? Where are you getting that book of business from? And that's for you entry level, agents. And then for the intermediate ones that are calling buyers, we dive deep into that. Statistically, what's happening? What have we learned? What are our lessons learned? How do we re-evaluate or recalibrate? And then the professional ones that are like, hey, I already have a book of business, but here's why I find I'm just not having any traction, right? And so we come in and we'll go into detail about, all right, here are the next steps, short-term goals that equal long-term goals, and actually have part of our training program accountability aspect, right? You move on to this next course once we've completed that and you have actually accomplished these short-term goals. You can present it, you can show it, boom.
Yeah. And then the last point that I want to talk about,
which is the most important, the foundation of everybody, period. Whatever space whether you're entry level, intermediate, if you've been doing this for a long time, because people have been doing this for 30 years and they still lack this.
And this is problem solver mindset. So in this business, that's 100% what we are. We're problem solvers, right? At the end of the day, there's always going to be some issue or something that arises that we've got to be very strategic and figure out a way to find a solution on. It could be before you even get somebody under contract, it could be submitting the offer, right? And then of course you get it under contract, and then something's going to come up, right? Because you got your inspection period, and now you got to figure out how to solve that, right? Something else comes up. There's so many opportunities where something can come up in a real estate transaction that you guys have to have a problem solver mindset to make sure that at the end of the day, you're going to get your client to the finish line with what they actually want and need, right?
They don't know how to solve a problem if they don't know, what a solution to that problem could possibly be, right? And that's what we want to train to. Then you have your intermediate person who's doing maybe just under sub 12 transactions a year, and maybe they're getting lucky and they're getting new construction properties, or where they're not running across a lot of problems to solve. Or maybe they're just in a price point where not a lot of problems exist. People are like, I don't care, this is $100,000, let's just keep it moving. And then you have your professionals who, you have to implement your problem-solving experience with like structural issues, termite issues, deed and title problems, or your recent example, being here in South Florida, Miami Lakes, of not having, I think it was a HUD paid off, right? Not having, buying a home and still really haven't bought that home, but yet you're reselling it to someone else. Walking through the door as a new agent, you just don't know where to start in that situation, right? And you have to, part of having that problem solver, trait, and if you don't have it, we'll teach you, and walk you through the steps, is just, immediately thinking outside the box, right? Not, here's a wall, I can't get through it, oh my God, and dwelling in that space. All right, well, here's my goal, here's how I climb over that wall, and here's how I keep working toward that goal, and make sure you're working to that goal very productively.
Yeah, there's a shift that's going on in the current market where there's less units being sold, which in theory would mean that there are less buyers buying property, right? Well, it's 100% what it means, right? Yeah. There may be buyers out there, but they're not actually purchasing anything. So there's less buyers buying property, and you're still trying to either do the same, well, really, you're trying to do more business than you did last year,
100%.
right? So what are you going to do to acquire these buyers to make sure that you can continue to propel in your career, right? So you got to problem solve that, and you got to be very strategic with that. So you've got to understand what is preventing these buyers from moving forward. In our current market, one of the biggest things that we're having an issue right now with is the interest rates, right? And so you see, okay, we have problem number one, the interest rates.
And give examples just so the audience understands, right? Give an example of how that problem is presented to, a new realtor coming in, that level one, and how level two sees it, and how level three would see it. And
so just to give you guys like the background on this, right? So current interest rates as of today, I think we're in the sevens, right? So let's just say 7.25, 7.25%. And what that means is that when you break down somebody's monthly payments for what they can afford today versus what they could have afforded 6 months in the past is significantly less. 6 months ago, the rates were sub 4%, right? And so that difference is now causing a difference of $300 to $500 on the monthly payments, depending on your purchase price.
And affordability, right?
Exactly. So this ends up impacting your affordability, because you used to be able, let's just use easy numbers, you might have had $2,500 a month on your monthly payments back 6 months ago, and now that is now shifted to $3,000 a month. And that may be on the exact same house and at the exact same price. The only difference is the interest rate, right? And how that impacts your monthly payments. And so if you were in that situation, you now might have lost a buyer because they can't afford the $3,000 per month. They can only afford the $2,500 per month.
And if you're an entry-level agent, you just lost a buyer.
100%.
You just left a market where buyers, you're standing outside of a, for sale by, a open house sign. You're a new agent, and people are like, hey, I want to give you offers, right? So you're just working in that space where all your buyers are coming to you. All you're doing is doing a contract, and that's it. In that particular space, right?
And so then you have that. So we have this gap. So now, as a problem solver, you've got to figure out what can we do to mitigate that gap, right? And so there are multiple ways. Like I would say one of the historical ways was, all right, what if I'm the buyer and I have cash on hand and I can buy down the rate, right? So I am going to buy it down for the life of the loan. And what it means to buy down is that you're paying a little bit more money in your closing costs, right, to reduce your overall interest rate, right? And so that was like an older way of doing things. Now things have become a little bit more strategic, where you don't have to put all that money up front. You can actually start leveraging the seller, right, and have a conversation with the seller and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I have no problems buying your property at X dollar amount, right? However, where I do need some help on is reducing the rate, right? So that I can have a monthly payment that works for me.
And that's going to be your level two. That's going to be your, those of you who've been doing some business and you actually know how to identify that particular seller, right? Or maybe not identify that seller. I think that's more of a level three, but level two, you're going to be in a situation where you'll be presented, with the opportunity to mention that to a seller. Level three will we'll talk about targeting that.
Yep. And so then you're at this point where you're saying, okay, I need X amount of dollars, right, to go towards this. So we negotiate that credit up front with the seller. We figure out the strategy behind whatever needs to be done to make that happen. We say, okay, boom, we've got you guys this credit. Now this credit can be used to actually reduce the overall interest rate, and strategically, it may not, you with the money that you got from the seller, you may not choose to put it all towards it to reduce it over the life of the loan, because it might just be a small amount that you have for a long time period, right? A 30-year fix.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can actually use that same amount, and you can use it in a 2-1 buy down program where it buys it down on the year 1 and it buys it down on the 2nd year. And what that means is that in the first year that you own the house, you're going to reduce that interest rate by at least 2%, right, of whatever the market rate is. And so now your monthly payments have reduced for the first year that you're in the house. And then on the 2nd year that you're in the house, it's going to reduce by another 1%, right? So your first 2 years in the house, you're going to get a reduction on your monthly payments. On year 3, it's going to go back to where your original rate was in year 0, right? When you purchased the house, where it was supposed to be. But the strategy here is that it gives you an option to see where are interest rates over the next 3 years.
Exactly.
Is it a situation where I should refinance? Are they getting better or are they getting worse? If they're getting better, you refinance. You actually get to use any of the proceeds that you hadn't used up until that time period to end up going towards your refinance, right? And so then you can refinance and reduce your interest rate and reduce your monthly payments, right? Or if the rates end up going north of where they're currently at, you're still locked in onto that rate from 3 years ago.
Exactly.
And so it's really a situation where it's a win-win, because the money's not coming out of your pocket as a buyer. It's coming out of the seller. The seller is offering this, right? And so all you're doing is reducing your monthly payments and then being able to sit back and see which way the interest rates go and see if it goes in your favor or not.
Our goal is to get you up to that conversation Matt just had with you all, where you can confidently and comfortably have that conversation with clients and answer maybe the roundabout questions that they're going to have. You know, you just don't want to have a spill and not actually know what you're talking about. So what we want to do is we want to train that entry level agent, and those agents last year, you know, those agents that are currently, you know, don't know where to go next because buyers aren't just constantly knocking on their door, right? And this is one of the first walls and barriers to, you know, getting people under contract and getting more buyers under contract and having this conversation. Some of you guys are getting buyers under contract and making it through, maybe a lender's helping you, and you really don't understand this conversation as much. You might lean heavily on the, you know, a lender or a broker. Our responsibility, or what we're taking on here, our goal is to help you actually, you know this conversation, have your thumb on the pulse of the industry, and make sure you can speak to it intelligently. And those of you who are, professionals in this space, and you're still actually having these issues, and you actually don't know how to go out and target homes, and that's what we've been really good at lately, is going out and saying, you know what, I'm going to target these homes because I know I can get a credit here. I know this market. I know what comps look like. You know, I know that this is going to be an easy conversation to have. I have someone looking for a $2 million home. They got a loan. I just need you to, you know, give me a credit. I know you can give me a credit. Let's have a conversation and be able to navigate through that conversation. We have been able to do that. You know, we've been successful at doing that, and we just want to share that information and train you guys and get you guys up to speed there.
Yeah. As you guys continue to grow your business, and we're transitioning out of that historical ramp up that we saw over the past 2 years and getting back into a more normalized market. So you should definitely save this one. Hit the little like button, give it some love, and we hope to see you guys out in the field.